Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spotted. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
All right, guys, it is Monday again, beginning of the month, and we're going to be getting all of the big data points this week. And we kind of have some leftover business from Friday. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's come to the charts. Here's the 30-minute volume profile on the treasuries, and you can see that we had a really strong move up. Somewhat of a breakout, I would say. On Friday, we are now coming back into that area and testing it on the downside, and we are getting pretty heavy activity already. Now, apparently, we kind of missed something, and during one of the Fed speeches, there was kind of a hint at another reverse operation twist. So, like, basically, they would be keeping the interest rates on the short-term end of the curve, buying more of that. So basically, they want to move some of their holdings from long-term into short-term treasuries, and so that is causing the front end of the curve to come up and for the overall yield curve to steepen. So you can see here on the 2 and 10 down on the bottom, you can see a pretty significant jump there, but now it's coming back. So the market may be questioning whether that's actually going to happen, how serious that was. And the whole, soft landing narrative is being questioned now as well, because it doesn't look like we're getting a soft landing. It looks like we're getting no landing. And how do you cut interest rates if there is, no landing? Nope, you have to keep interest rates where they are. If not, increase them. Coming over to the S&P 500, man, what an up day on the end of the month. There's some crazy stuff in the stock indexes, I tell you what. Oil really doing pretty good as well. We're still getting like voluntary cuts from oil producers, OPEC stuff happening, but I don't know. I think we just kind of have to wait and see on oil. Again, a lot of analysts think that it'll be very difficult for oil to stay above 80. So we'll see. If it breaks convincingly above 80, you might start to see a little bit of carnage in the other markets as they get concerned about inflation coming back from higher oil. Here you can see gold and silver really, really reacted on Friday. Here's Kappa. Kappa doing better. And here's the dollar. The dollar got hammered pretty hard on that news on Friday, and maybe a little bit of comeback, but... And Bitcoin just continues to pump. So remember that this day right here was like the cray-cray. Still going. They are pumping TF out of this thing. And you know what? It does seem like a lot of this money is coming in, it's like to pump it up, like through Tron and so on and so forth. But the ETFs are getting buying as well. So I think that this run in Bitcoin is probably going to continue. At some point, there's got to be, a little bit of wealth destruction in there. But I think overall, it is going to end the year higher. Okay. So now today, we do have Fed's Harker speaking at 9 o'clock, and we have a 6-month and 3-month bill auctions. So we got a little bit later in the week. Apparently Powell is going to be speaking, so that will maybe put to, give us some more guidance on whether there's going to be some intentional yield curve steepening coming in. I think that kind of makes sense. And so for my swing trade that I have, We're still up. So we made about 800. We've lost about 200 on the new contract. So, we still have some room. I have my stop up here or whatever. But I'm kind of wondering if this new narrative is big enough for me to switch my position. If not, get rid of it. And I'm not sure because I do think, Operation Twist is a big thing. So I think being, basically you want to buy 2s and sell 30s. But I also still kind of think that interest rates may be priced a little bit too low. So I don't know if we have to worry about it right now, because for now, the flows this morning have been decidedly to the downside. So 11K bid in. Oh yeah, that big old monster at 18.5. Now, why do you think that they would have it there at 18.5? Isn't that odd? Have one of you guys been shadowing me? You're like, well, Seth, he still has his original position there from 18.5, so we better put a massive, massive order there. That one is really bizarre. Is there, maybe if I come back to the daily chart here, 22, well, no, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. Okay, well, it's not the 200-day moving average. Perhaps there could be some other moving average close to that area. It's close. It's close enough that it could be like a long-term level. I think I got something in my eye because it's watering a lot and kind of stings a little bit. Well, it's a new month. It's probably time to change my contacts anyways. That's you, sorry. I just can't, I don't know. That one is a weird one, for sure. And it's early in the session. So I think based on the heuristics that I try to use to interpret large orders, I think that is a large order worth taking note of. Whether we're going to go towards it or away from it, who knows, but... So here's Joseph Wang talking about what I was talking about. Waller started the post-quantitative tightening discussion by suggesting the Fed raise the bill's share of its Treasury portfolio. Implementation of this would in effect extend quantitative tightening, as coupons would likely need to roll off and be reinvested into bills 2 more years after quantitative tightening ends. Which means that the bills in the short end of the curve, basically they're buying those treasuries and those interest rates are coming down. So if we were going to take the trade here in the micros, then we would want to sell the 2 and buy the 10. No rush though, because rates have been going down. Although there was let's see here. That pullback was it looks like just a normal pullback so far. I was going to say this pullback was maybe a little bit fast, but it just looks like normal. US dollar perks up as treasury yields climb to start the week. Oh, they're right. The dollar is kind of responding, isn't it? You finally shaved it off and joined the bald man crew over the weekend. Welcome. There's every once in a while, TikTok will be like, oh, look, he's bald. We should start showing him content about how to regrow your hair, and they want you to put minoxidil on your hair and all. No, screw that. I ain't putting all that effort into my hair to have, a full head of hair that looks clearly thinning and not quite right, and all of the work involved in it. Like, I think being bald looks just fine, and it's way more convenient. Tether briefly surpassed 100 billion in circulation. Are you kidding me? 100 billion? There is no way. You're not bald, but you've been shaving your head for like 25 years. That's what I did. Just for the convenience. You know what part my problem right now though is like I don't know if you can see, I'm too lazy to shave it off. And in the winter, it's nice to have just a little bit of hair there. You know what I'm saying? So I know it doesn't look good. I know that it makes you look like an old man, but I'd rather have a little bit of hair there. I'm also having the issue where the beard is like gets a little unkempt. I don't think that you can see it very well on the camera, but I've got like all these little hairs that like stick out and stuff. Yeah. Michael Brown points out Nouriel Roubini, aka Dr. Doom, is actually bullish right now. Good grief. I grew my hair out shoulder length in 9th and 10th grade. I wanted to have metal hair, but I couldn't survive the Dutch schoolgirl look part of the growth cycle. Nah, I kind of wish that when I was younger that I had let it grow out just to enjoy the hair while it lasted, So with my autistic son, we let him. He has it fairly long. And I don't think we've cut the 2-year-old's hair, which probably we should because his hair is starting to look a little silly. His hair is starting to look a little silly. Okay, so already 2 ticks down and kind of suggesting, but look at the volume again, like 3Ks on both sides. Like, we got stuff going on early. So did you guys see Dune over the weekend? If you did not see the new Dune movie, like, what are you doing with your life? I think you should go see it. My uncle that I do a lot of the woodworking projects with, he just refuses to see anything in the theaters anymore. It's like, man, you're really missing out. Really missing out. MP3. I don't know. This could go either way. I think the treasuries right now, it kind of seems to me like there are big boys on both sides. I saw the Spice Diver cut on YouTube this weekend of the 1984 film. You know what? It was one of the funny things that I had seen was like, there is a group of people that are like, it's not as good as the original 1984 film. Like, okay, like I can't. It bothers me a little bit, first of all, for people to call the Villeneuve films a remake of the 1984 films. It's not. That it is an adaptation of the book, and they're not trying to remake the original film. Villeneuve has made like pretty significant changes overall to the story that really, I think, improve the narrative. So it is very much its own work and not a remake of the 1984 film. But it's also kind of funny because I don't think that a lot of these people realize that, like, well, there are some people that enjoyed the 1984 film. Okay, there was the super nerds loved it. Okay, but overall it was a failure. Like, and I don't think that the kids realize that. Don't really watch movies if you well, yeah, it's okay. So my parents, for whatever reason, my dad, for whatever reason, has always been really into Dune. So I don't know if he like read it in like early on, but he read a lot of sci-fi books in the 70s, let's say. And when it was like when they made the sci-fi miniseries, the Dune sci-fi miniseries, we watched that. Like, I remember watching Dune as a kid and being like, oh, well, but we're not going to see how the story ends, but maybe someday you will, sort of a thing. The film is pretty terrible, at least from a progression standpoint. The set design and art direction is really cool. So Uzi, have you seen the new one though? I'm kind of trying to judge like how much spoilers I should give you guys here. But Villeneuve's changes are absolutely brilliant. I guess I can say that without like spoiling things. He makes a few select changes. You haven't seen it, okay? I'll tell you this one, okay? In the book, one of the things that happens is that the sister who was born, what do they call it? Preborn or something like that. Basically, because her mother took the water of life while she was pregnant, and exposing her to the consciousnesses of all of her ancestors, right? The baby has intelligent and can speak before they were even born and all of that, right? And then in the book, when they like confront the emperor, the little girl goes and kills the what do we call him? The Harkonnen Duke, right? That whole thing. So that was one of the things that was always like hard to adapt, because child actors is really hard, and it just doesn't seem right having, you know, babies walking up and killing people, you know? So they changed that. In the movie, the mother is still pregnant by that point. Little girl hasn't been born yet. So Paul does the deed. Paul kills him. And I've seen 2 feature-length movies made after 2016 since then, Prey and The Menu. Yeah, you're just like my uncle. Just no interest in going to the movie theater at all. Doesn't want to be any part of it. Another change that they make is that because I understand the books are deeply flawed. I think that the books are are amazing and super popular for really two reasons. One is the world building. I don't think that up until that point that they had ever had a sci-fi series with that degree of world building built into it, right? But then it's a different kind of a read. It's really weird to read because there are so many terms and words and stuff that are made up, and the text is incredibly dense too. Like every little word has meaning and is describing nuanced things about the world. So it's very different to read because like it seems like so technical and complicated, and yet as you're reading it, it's like, okay, I think I understand what's going on. So it's really weird. I think that that's why the books are so popular and so forth. But like from a narrative perspective, it's very deeply flawed. And you can see that in some of the arguments that people have online. Like this whole thing about whether Paul is a hero or not. Because the whole thing was that the author felt like that people didn't necessarily get it. And so he tried to make it more explicitly clear in Dune Messiah, which is why everybody's talking about it, because they're almost certainly going to make a third movie now at this point, right? Although it might be like 5 years from now. But I think that those criticisms are kind of fair and are the author's fault. Like, there's not a clear narrative in there. There's not anything that like clearly makes Paul out to be like a bad guy per se, just like that there's no good guys per se. Paying $20 to go to the movies just doesn't seem like make sense to me anymore. I don't know, man. If you're gonna see any movie in theaters of the last, let's say 20 years, I think it would be Dune. Like, people are comparing this to Lord of the Rings. I think that is an apt comparison. This is because it's a trilogy, or it's going to be a trilogy. This is basically turning into this generation's Lord of the Rings. This is a movie that like people are going to do the weekend marathon and watch these movies over and over and over again. Really is that good. And that's significant, I guess. But like I said, there's flaws in the books, and I think that Villeneuve resolves those flaws really, really effectively in a way that is difficult to describe. Like Paul drinking the water of life and then basically becoming like this, almost like this, knows everything that's going to happen, and almost kind of a psychopath in some respects, I would say also. Like, the way that plays out on film is just amazing. I've never seen anything like it. It is so cool and terrifying, because it's like, you know what's happening is bad, and yet you're totally like, yeah, let's get on the spaceships and go conquer. Like, I'm totally down. So I think that he did a real good job of, like, he understood the point of the story or what the author wanted, and made some changes that just made the message so much more clear. Was good. Was really good. And it's one of those rare instances where, like, everything comes together. Like, the acting was amazing, the cast was great, but like the performances were just astounding. Villeneuve was an amazing director. He had a very clear vision. They had a good script. The visual effects were just great, head and shoulders above any, like, all of these freaking, man, all of the Marvel movies and stuff like that. Like, the effects just, blow them out of the water. And they made it for less money too, which is crazy. And then the music is so good. I kind of thought that the music in part one was kind of like, it's not my favorite work from Zimmer, but the theme in the second one Or, well, I think it's Chinese music, but it's so good. So good. Just like every part of the movie is just S tier. Was really good. I'm a little surprised. I was hoping that more of you guys would have seen it. We could have gone into more detail. Yeah. Although, you know, so here's the thing I think that so here's the problem. Like, narratively speaking, I think, with Dune, okay, is that the author says that Paul is not meant to be a hero, but the entire narrative structure of the story is a hero's journey story. And then you get to this point where, you know, Paul decides to become emperor and all of those sorts of things, right? But the reason that he's doing those things is because he's drank the water of life. He can now see, you know, all of the, or can basically has the consciousness of all of his ancestors with him. And he can see everything that's going to happen in the future. And he sees this narrow path that allows humanity to survive somehow, right? And they don't really explain what that is, but apparently in the books, it's basically like humanity will stagnate and then die. And so he has to do something so that they continue to expand. It is essentially the whole thing. Okay, so he's doing all of this stuff because of the golden path. So, like, you come in and you say, well, it's not a hero's journey. He's not the hero. He's going and, like, killing billions of people. But he's doing it because of the golden path. So how can you fault him for doing that, right? So it's like it's supposed to be a cautionary tale about leader worship, but it's like, okay, but if there was this guy that you knew could see the future and was able to guide into the perfect, most optimal outcome, wouldn't you follow him? Right? That part, I think, is kind of a narrative flaw in it that kind of destroys this, oh, it's actually supposed to be a cautionary tale sort of thing. How could it? Because he's freaking prescient. He knows everything that's going to happen, right? The only way that it can make sense, and maybe they'll do this in the third one, I say the only way that it can make sense and that narrative can really be in there is if you show that he has fallen from the golden path. Basically, you can see, you know, some point at which, and maybe it's like the Bene Gesserit lady says, like, why have you strayed from the golden path? Like, you see that he's doing stuff that is not in line with what the optimal outcome would be, and other people know it, and he's doing it for his own selfish interests. Like, that's what it should be, and it would be turned into like, oh no, like, this is bad. Now humanity is going to be doomed because of me. But then his children are born, and there's twins, and he didn't expect that, and the twin being there saves everything, and then he admits his faults and leaves. Like, that's the way I think it has to play out for it to make sense, right? Because you're right, like, it's a reminder to always be skeptical of power. But what I'm saying is that, like, sorry, what is the guy's name? Miller, or no, Frank Miller? Frank Herbert, that's right. There's a lot going on with the Dune books that is kind of similar to like what happened in Star Wars, where it's like you put this original work out and it becomes so popular so quickly that, you know, people's reaction and how they react to the book plays into what happens in the later books. And you do things like you bring certain characters back and you do all of this sort of thing because that's like kind of what the audience wants to see. And like sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And that's kind of happened a lot in Star Wars, right? I think that there's some of that going on. And so it's like, if you made a mistake in one book, then you go and you try and fix it in another book. And I think that that's kind of what's going on, is like to come in and say, well, it's supposed to be a warning about like following charismatic leaders and this and that and the other. But like the messaging for that in the original book, which I have read, is weak. It's weak. So he tried to fix it. But then even I kind of wondered, did he really actually fix it that well? Because what I've read about the Messiah book, I don't think resolves the conundrum that I have. Right? Because the conundrum that I have is they say that you're supposed to be skeptical of charismatic leaders and this is Paul like manipulating people and everything else like that. But like from my view, he's not, because he really is the Lisam al whatever. He actually is that, and he can, because after he takes the water, like he can see the future, and he is all of those things. He's not the Kiswach Harak, whatever his son ends up being that, but you know. So maybe Villeneuve will fix that. Yeah, you can watch the new part 1 on Hulu. Is it on Hulu now? I think it was on Netflix. I was surprised at how quickly they put on HBO the part 1. Last week when I was thinking about watching the 1984 movie, Hulu told me I needed a premium add-on. So, dude, Hulu is the freaking worst of the streaming services in my opinion, because you have to pay to see certain content and then you still get advertisements. Like, because I really felt that the advertisements was what kind of pushed people over to Netflix, right? I remember that whole shift. Man, if you're a kid, any kids listening to this, and now I'm an old man, I'm almost 40. Well, I'm 38, 39. I remember all that playing out. At the time, Blockbuster had this new subscription thing where you would pay like $10 or $20 a month for a subscription, and you could rent as many movies as you wanted. The only caveat was you could only have one at a time. Okay? And that was great because you could get any movie. They had every movie at the video store. So we totally took advantage of that. We'd get a new movie, we'd watch, and we were constantly watching a new movie, right? And then Netflix came along. And the thing with Netflix originally was that it would just mail in, right? Well, I never really kind of took advantage of that because all the movies that I wanted to watch were at the video store, and it was faster for me to just drive down to the video store, get it switched, whatever, come back, right? But then Blockbuster's corporate was just like so stupid and like changed that program and made every possible bad decision he possibly could and went under. And then Netflix started doing streaming, right? And when streaming came along, a lot of people were really skeptical, but you could watch these TV shows, which was not something that you could get from the video store. And you could binge watch entire series where you would like miss episodes and things like that in the past. You could just watch it all on Netflix, and then you switched over to that, right? And you didn't have to watch any commercials, so you could just watch your show. And that was the great thing about it. So we kind of made that shift. And then the corporations came back in and were like, oh no, but we have to introduce all of the crappy stuff that people hated and were trying to get away from. Like commercials. Thanks, Hulu. Screw you, Hulu. The new version needed a premium add-on subscription 1 week and then didn't as of like literally right now. Oh, really? Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Well, and then there's this other thing, which is like everybody has to have their own premium subscription service, right? So like Paramount is the worst offender of this one, right? It's like, okay, we already have all of these other subscription services. We need to take some of the content off and some of the worst content, frankly, go force you to pay for another service. Nobody wants to pay for that. I'm so sick of it. I'll pay for Disney because the kids have to watch Cars, but Disney and Netflix, I'd rather not have the other ones. We paid $200 a month for cable and still got commercials. We ain't gonna pay $15 a month for streaming. And maybe you're right. Maybe you're right that it's too much to expect. Netflix spoiled us. Maybe. But yeah, it just makes me think about this other thing, which is like that they put the movies out onto streaming so quickly. That surprises me. Like, I remember my kids going and seeing Willy Wonka over the Christmas holiday, and it's already out on streaming. So it's like already 2 months later, you can see it on streaming. I guess I wouldn't blame people like Uzi that don't go and watch the movies at all, because they don't have to wait that long to see them. Although I would say with Dune 2 is different. Like, Dune 1 in theaters was great, right? Dune 2 in theaters is like an experience of a lifetime, okay? Having the really, really massive subwoofers and the big screen, and you want to experience this. If you're going to watch it at home, make sure you have a really good sound system and stuff, because that's really part of the experience. I don't know if the movie will be as amazing at home, but we'll see. All streaming is a way of getting rid of the old satellite and coaxial infrastructure? Maybe. But I don't think people realize how much the coaxial infrastructure is. It's a big part of the internet today still, right? Like, if you are not on fiber optic internet, your internet is probably running through a cable like that of some type at some point. But the cable boxes and stuff, that probably cost cable companies a lot of money. Maybe. That might be. I went to the store I went to Best Buy the other day to get an Ethernet cable, because I thought that there was one of my cameras wasn't working, and I thought it was because of the cable, but I think it wasn't because of the cable. I think that camera is just busted. But so I went to Best Buy just to get an extra Ethernet cable, because I was too lazy to make one. And I was looking at the TVs too, because at some point I think I would like to buy a new TV. When I looked at the thing was like I get online, and then like the new, well, let's not say the new, but like the nicest TVs right now are like this QOLED ones where they have like quantum black dots behind it, so you get super, super good contrast. And OLED isn't perfect, but there's a lot of really great things about it and everything, right? So when I was reading about it online, I was like, oh, okay, here's a big TV. It's like $2,000, something like that. And I'm like, holy cow. Like, the nicest TV you can get is only $2,000? Well, I was wrong. Because then I went to the Best Buy, and their largest TV with the nicest technology, and the technology that was like a step up that I wasn't reading about on the internet, was 8K. Is an 8K television really necessary? At 85 inches, maybe. At 85 inches, maybe. But then, like, how much content out there, how much 8K content is there actually available out there? I think that probably, well, not probably, I'm 100% confident that my internet would be able to do 8K if, like, Netflix or the service was providing it. But my goodness, providing 8K videos got to be expensive AF. I have a friend who's really into home entertainment, and he has an 8K TV. Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, like 5K for a television still seems cheap to me. I remember in the 90s a really nice TV being like 10 to 15K. Like a really nice TV was something that you absolutely put on a payment plan and paid out over a really long time. And I guess even with 2 to 5K, most people would do that. But I couldn't imagine wanting or needing that. I wouldn't have it if I lived in a cavernous mine. An 8K television. So are you saying that the 8K isn't really worth it? I can't tell the difference between like a 4K and an 8K. I'm not that sophisticated. I don't know. I don't have any like serious issues with my current television. I wish it was bigger, but I don't know. I'm not sure you can. I think that for certain TV sizes, that's true, right? It kind of depends on like the size of the TV and how close you are to it. But I think that once you start getting to like 75, 85 inch televisions, that it does make a difference. If I were rich like that, I'm the type of dude who'd spend more time tending to my vast gardens and mowing my huge lawn. Maybe. Okay, so this reminds me of something that I see a lot that kind of bothers me. Okay, is like all of these rich people, when they're on podcasts, they're always like, if you spend X amount of time doing this and X amount of time doing this, that's all time that you could like be spending like actually making money, right? And so they talk about all of the money they spend on these extravagant services like getting a chef and yard care and somebody to clean your house and things like that, right? And how much time it saves them. And then they're like, that saved me like X hours this week and I'm worth this much an hour. So that's how much money it's actually saving me. And the amount that I'm paying them is like trivial. But it's like, yeah, except for that. Did you actually use all of that time to do something that was making you money and actually get, were actually productive with that time? Because I bet you aren't. I kind of suspect that a lot of these people are kind of use this kind of flawed logic to just justify extravagant lifestyles and or to sell other rich people on doing stuff like that, right? But I do kind of think if there was anything that I would like give up, it would probably be like cleaning the house and the yard work. So, but I totally believe you, Uzi, that you're the type that you would want to spend a lot of time in your gardens and stuff. If I was that rich, I would want to have a garden that was crazy enough that it would be more than just one person could handle, right? If I had money to burn, I think the one thing I'd change about my life is buying junk cars and rebuilding them. I'd love to learn that as a skill. Is it just me, or is that kind of like dying out as a thing too? I don't think that there are as many people buying old cars and like rebuilding them as they're used to. It's dying. It's like people don't have the time or money to spend on that sort of a thing. And yeah, in Morgan cases, there's too many computers in cars now, so you don't really do it with new cars. And we're kind of getting to the point now where even the really, really old cars, they have that stuff in them, right? And I do think it's kind of sad because you do not see those older cars anymore. Value of things is dying in general as everything follows the cell phone model. Buy a new one. Yeah. Dude, totally. There's people have talked about this a lot, done it to death, so I won't spend too much time on this, but it really feels like that everything is just trying to squeeze you at the margins, right? Like, the product is slightly less good. There's, they're all trying to be like drug dealers, like cutting in extra ingredients and diluting their product, right? It feels like everybody's doing that about everything. And it's now to the point where you're seeing it in cars too. Like I was looking at, well, no, we did this, was it Thursday or Friday, right? When we were looking at the cars, and I was like, okay, here's the Lexus interior. But then I look at the Lexus interior and I'm like, I don't think that particular one is really all that different from like the nicer Toyotas. So like Lexus is diluting their brand a little bit too, aren't they? Planned obsolescence, yeah. Can you review oil? Well, so oil has been doing some interesting things as of late because, you know, they've been range bound for a really long time and now they're finally starting to come up to 80. Actually, let's come back over here and let me duplicate this ES chart and change it over to a CL so that you can see it on a daily basis. Okay, so this was like the crazy times, right? Then we had this time period where it was just like really under pressure. And then kind of second half of last year, there was a little bit of a run that just kind of mysteriously got sold. So now the analysts are kind of saying that like this 80 area, maybe up to 85, is kind of resistance, and that there would really need to be an increase in the demand for oil for them to really break out. Now, the economy is looking good, and we're kind of turning into there's no landing scenario, and so that should mean that there should be demand for oil. And if China recovers, then I think that there would be, and then you could start to see oil back up to $90, $100 again. But right now, unclear that that's going to happen. Be the guy to fix some electric cars and resell them. You might have a good little business in this. Electric car, by the way, I don't know if you meant to say electric cars, but like the collapse of the EV industry over the past 6 months has really been jarring, don't you think? Just like all of a sudden people didn't want them anymore when it was like the coolest thing. Like you remember like a year ago, it was like a big thing for these YouTubers who had really become really successful since the pandemic, right? And they're buying new houses. And one of the things they absolutely have to have in their new house is the top of the line charger for their Tesla, right? They have to have a Tesla. Like it was the cool thing. And the whole time I was always scoffing at it. Like, like if I was that rich and I was really going to buy a car, like buy a Tesla. And now everybody is kind of like, oh, there's problems with them. Especially when I read those stories about the cars being abandoned in Chicago because it got too cold. That's when I was like, oh, I don't see myself getting an electric vehicle anytime soon. I say electric cars solely because many of them are down for small, stupid reasons, multiple being easy to fix only if you know how, and a lot of people are too scared to even try to look it up. Yeah. Well, have you seen these guys on TikTok that like fix electric motors? Like, eventually an electric motor will just kind of go bad and it needs to be rewired. And rewiring it is kind of a meticulous process. So like, it's totally something that you could probably do yourself, but you're not going to do yourself because it's just so freaking, it's crazy, right? So these guys that have the equipment and the experience to do it, they make a huge margin on it. So I would say it's definitely something that, like, if you decided that that's what you were going to make your life, you could totally make a ton of money on it, yeah. All the Priuses that you see for sale with one small issue or another, yes, it's a small issue, but the car won't drive good until you fix it, mainly being a seller to being bad. Rewiring doesn't scare me. I rewired my entire Suburban Custom with doors being rerouted and working. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the sort of thing that like a regular person wouldn't do, but is relatively easy. It's just, you don't want to do it because it's so darned tedious, right? Because you have to like wrap it around in a certain pattern and stuff. You know, with the whole planned obsolescence thing, though, how much of that is just that we have not had an economy that's growing as fast, right? It's kind of crazy to think about how strong the stock market has been and how fast the technology and the size of the economy seems to have been increasing. And yet, when you look at things like GDP, we've kind of been underperforming on GDP for a long time now. And I think that some of these things are kind of that. Like when the economy is going well and everybody's making money, companies tend to give you more because they're trying to attract more customers. Like they want the money and they're trying to pull everything, right? Whereas you get in right now where it's kind of, let's not say like a recession, but we're kind of in a consolidation phase of sorts. And then, yeah, they're all watering their products down, trying to save as much money as they possibly can. People focus so much on technology and too little on their rapidly fading ability to actually own and retain said technology. I don't know though, but a lot of my key pieces of technologies do last a long time. Like my phones last longer than they're supposed to. I usually use a phone for 2 to 4 years before I replace a phone, even though they want you to replace it every year. My computers, right? Man, I tell you what, you build a good computer these days, they last a really long time. Part of that is because they're not pushing the gaming technology as fast as they used to because so much of it is moved to the consoles. But you could use a rotary phone from the 1920s. Well, okay, that's true. You're right. We're talking completely different orders of magnitude on timescale, aren't we? Because you don't use a phone for 10 years. Yeah. Because they run out. Well, I would never run out of space if it wasn't for the videos that we make. Tell you what. The hard drive space is one of the few. I remember as a kid, you know, you put a new game on, you had to find new hard drive space, right? That's just not the case anymore. Like nowadays, you get a new computer with a 2 terabyte hard drive, and like, okay, good luck filling out 2 terabytes. That's hard. Yep, I had to build a new rig because my graphics drivers required Windows 8 or above in my old rig. Yep. They kind of made a change in Windows 11 that forced us to upgrade. Otherwise, I think a lot of people would still be on the older hardware. Because the older hardware, like my old machine, still runs the new games just fine. There's been a real kind of what happened was there was the consoles, and the console technology was already kind of a little bit outdated by the time it came out. And so everybody just kept their graphics fidelity at the level of what those consoles were. And then on top of that, companies in an effort to trying to appeal to as large of a demographic as possible, including kids, made their graphics more cartoony. Right? Minecraft kind of, well, I don't know what really triggered it, but Minecraft is an example. Fortnite is an example. They made it more cartoony and it appeals to kids because of that. I really try to avoid that now because I feel like that the kids are everything that's wrong with the internet. I think that kids ruin the internet. So I want to play games that kids aren't going to be playing, right? And so because they didn't need like that more detailed graphics, they switched around and just made better input, essentially. So you get the super high refresh monitors. People want their games to be running at 144 hertz or higher, like frames per second or higher. And so all of the power was able to go into that. And now the ray tracing stuff. But there's still kind of this like waiting explosion of computer graphics fidelity coming that's like kind of been put on hold because I guess people just don't care enough. But like they're getting to the point now where they can make photorealistic games and it's pretty wild stuff, right? And then once all of your games are to that level of fidelity, and they're making a ton of content in that, and that's the thing is that the tools with the artificial intelligence and everything are getting now where it's a lot easier to generate content like that. Because like let's just say 10 years ago, because that was the last time that I did this sort of thing. You had to do it all by hand, and it was hard. Now you have AIs that can generate photorealistic stuff. Like, oh my gosh, right? Okay. When all your games are like that, then maybe we'll actually use the space that we have available to us, right? There's many parts of our computing hardware that has like far outpaced our ability to use. For the average person, at least. Twos are dumping. That's interesting. Well, I don't see it too strongly on the 5-year, but we are kind of slowly dropping towards those lows again. There's still that super big 18.5. What's your opinion on is that the AMD processor? I don't know. Oh, it's a professional trading education? I've never heard of that before. I think so. Here's what I think on a lot of those sorts of things, especially when it comes to like super computery stuff like 3D modeling, photo editing, etc., etc., etc. There are plenty of resources for you online to learn how to do all of those things on your own. And I don't think that you really need a course. But what you do need that's difficult to get, that you get with the courses, and you just kind of have to do on your own is to get the experience, right? Like when I did my computer science degree, I remember there was classes where like the whole class was, here's this program that has a memory fault in it, and that allows you to put like your own assembly code in and get the program to do things that it's not supposed to do. And that was like the whole course, right? And so I'm doing something with this every week, a new project that is like super deep, complicated stuff, right? And what often happens when you learn on your own is you learn about a concept and you read it and you go, oh, okay, cool. Right. And then you move on. But you never, or you copy their example. They show you an example, you copy their example. But then you're not given this, okay, here is a new one that you've never seen before. And now you write it. And right, you have to get that kind of an experience. Right. And so if you're going to be doing like 3D modeling, game creation, stuff like that, That's one of the difficult things, right? But generally speaking, somebody that was like self-motivated enough to really generate their own experience tends to do really, really well and is highly prized by the industry. Okay. Now, the other side of that is I would not recommend working for the video game industry unless you plan on joining your own small startup of sorts, because the really big professional game studios just exploit and drain their workers as much as possible. It's absolutely crazy. That's really the almost always the case. Anytime you're in a job that like is prestigious, let's say, like if you're going to work for Goldman Sachs, for instance, you're probably going to make less money than if you worked somewhere else. They know. You would think that it would be the opposite, but in many cases it's not. They know that people will take less pay simply for the prestige of working for Goldman, for instance, right? And that's the way that it works with video games. Everybody wants to make video games. They have plenty of workers. And so because of the supply and demand markets in that, and the nature of making video games in general, that's like, you're crunching to get a game out by a certain time. And then when that's out, they don't need as many people and everybody gets laid off. So the video game industry just absolutely sucks to work in. What software do you use for what? I don't know. I did a little bit of modeling in Maya when I was in school, but I don't mess with that. I'm not really good at that. I did not have the artistic vision to really make good characters and that sort of a thing. Oh, what software do you use for trading? Of course, because this is a trading stream and we're talking about trading. I use Jigsaw Day Trader. It is not free. It's $500 for the software license, for a lifetime software license, and then $50 a month for a live trading license to be able to put live orders in. I mean, really, when you think about it, because the CME requires them to charge money for the data fees and everything, there's not really a futures trading solution that is truly free, right? But the closest that you're going to get are the ones like Iron Beam, the different solutions that are a version of Quant Tower. I guess Tradeovate and NinjaTrader Web kind of fit into that sort of a paradigm too. Like you're paying a monthly fee, but then the platform comes with that. But if you're going to trade futures, that's one of the first things that you're going to have to accept, is that it's going to cost you just to trade it. Do you believe in technical analysis like chart patterns? So I think that the question like, does technical analysis work, is probably not the correct question. In general, on an intraday, that is day trading basis, technical analysis is not very effective. Most of the ideas and things that people have kind of built up in their heads about how you can make money using technical analysis were based on swing traders managing a portfolio. So there are systematic portfolio strategies, and some of them might utilize a moving average. Some of them might use a candlestick pattern or some sort of reading of chart patterns of some sort, right? But in order for those sorts of things to work out, they have to have a well-crafted universe of things to trade, and then they're trading every time, no matter what instrument it is, the pattern that they're looking for, right? most retail traders in futures, the reason that you're trading retail trading futures is because you can do it with a relatively small account, right? You have to have like $25,000 to really day trade in stocks. So you move over to futures where, you can day trade futures for as little as $500 in some instances, right? So you're going to be trading a single instrument that you're an expert in on a daily basis, right? And when you start, now all of a sudden you've kind of destroyed the things that made those systematic strategies successful. Because the way the systematic strategy works is just anytime that like a trend is going to get going, you get in just in case. And most of the time you don't win, but when a trend does happen, you're pretty much guaranteed to be in on it, and it goes so far that it will make up for all of those losers, right? That's how that works. If you're not trading them all, you don't have a well-crafted universe of assets. Well-crafted universe of assets holding it for weeks and weeks and weeks, then it's not going to work, right? And so it comes down to really the mistake that people make is particularizing the general. So I could come in and I might be able to say that there's some chart pattern and that it resolves to the upside 55% of the time, right? But you're only going to make money if you trade that pattern every time, right? So coming in and looking at a particular situation and saying, well, because of this chart pattern, this chart pattern, this chart pattern, this chart pattern, it is likely to move up, yada, yada, yada. That doesn't work. That doesn't work unless you're catching every single one of those instances of that thing, right? And the issue is that, especially once you get into an intraday time period, you start backtesting these sorts of things, you'll find that, oh yeah, it appears to be like it makes money 55% of the time, but that's just because they're making statistical mistakes. They don't have a large enough data sample. They're not factoring in the fat-tailed nature of markets, etc., etc. And when you factor all of that in, it's break even and it doesn't work. Intraday basis, right? Now, something that I do use is I do look at the order flow, okay? It is necessary to look at the order flow to really understand what's going on in a stock, right? Are we coming up against resistance like there are a lot of passive sellers out there and we're trying to plow through them and we can't make it? Or is it like just petering out? Or are we getting, if I'm seeing big volume, is it one side is the aggressor or are both sides the aggressor? And, how do you know? Are they buying or selling? What? You can only know that by looking at the DOM. Does that predict what's going to happen next? Not necessarily, but it is incredibly useful to understanding what's going on. And then when you combine that with everything else that you know about the market, then you can get a pretty clear picture of what's going on and you can start making speculative decisions off of that, right? So understanding the order flow is super important. Just don't look at it as some sort of predictive indicator, right? It's just only helping you understand accurately what's happening right now. That's it. And I do have videos that teach you about order flow. So if you just go to my front channel page, you'll find it. So the order flow video series, it's like third column down or something, third row down or something like that. So if you want to learn about order flow and you want to learn about like the real, like everything that we really know about markets that's proven, you go and watch those videos. Right. And then that provides you a pretty good framework to combine all of the things that we do know that matters into a complete trading system and being able to make speculative trades from there. I want to start a small fund. I am working on moving in that direction. It's going to take, I think there's a lot of work. I think that it'll probably be a year or two before I'd be ready to do that, but I'm having a really, really hard time getting started. Like, I want to do some more programming work. I want to get more into backtesting some of these higher time frame strategies and portfolio strategies and stuff. And I find that I don't have the time, or that when I do have the time, I'm just not in a state where I can really work effectively. It's really hard to get into that right now. But I really feel like that I should try and make a fund. I feel like that's the next place to go. But when I start my fund, it won't just be for family and friends. I want to make it, I want to market it specifically towards everybody. You'll have to be a qualified, accredited investor. And you can become an accredited investor by taking a test, or a test is coming out. So, like, the idea behind the fund would be for those people that take that test, those are the people that we'd be targeting. Those, you know, that we would be trying to contact and get to invest in our fund. That's my idea. Can people from... I suppose they could, yeah. I don't know if that... I think that would work. I think that it would be like, you're a Canadian, but you can still be an accredited investor. I bet you it would probably work, but I don't actually know. That's a good question. There's a lot of fuzzy areas when you start to get into other countries. Canada is a tough one because Canada is more strict on things. So maybe Canada will have a law that would prevent you from participating. I am also starting a fund in... Wait, where is MU country? And what kind of a fund? Because I'm thinking about doing a managed futures fund. Though there's still some open questions about how we're doing that. Can we join together and code and backtest? Because I am also learning. Yeah. I know how to code. I know how to code, that's for sure. Right. Oh, options. That's a horse of a different color. Yeah. Well, because what I want to do is momentum. I just want to do futures momentum strategy. That's the majority of the funds in the futures space are momentum funds. So it's a strategy that continues to work well and that I think I can be pretty sophisticated with. But still keep it simple enough because I don't want, I want it to be something that everybody can invest in. Part of that is that it needs to be a relatively simple and reliable strategy, There's risk involved in momentum strategies, but you're not like going out on the limb on some completely new crazy idea or something, right? So that's sort of the thing that I'm going into. Sure. Or you'd have to send me the data too. But how are you doing? Like, what kind of code are you using, and where is your data coming from? Because especially you say options. Where do you get good data for options to be able to do backtesting on? Because my issue with options has been that you can't really backtest it very well. Because the historical prices aren't necessarily reflective of what would have been happening if you're trying to trade it live. Liquidity is unreliable. Oh, you're back testing normal shares and getting the data from Yahoo. I see. Yeah, you can show me. And are you doing it in Python? He says yes. How many live trades do you end up taking within a week or a month? I would probably say that under normal circumstances, and right now we're not normal circumstances, by the way. Under normal circumstances, I take maybe on average 2 to 3 trades a week. It used to be a lot more, but the older I get, the more that I start to narrow focus in on when I'm really, really confident that I know where it's going. And if I don't have something that really, really clearly tells me that we're about to go in a certain direction, I don't mess with it. So I'm looking for high probability trades, right? Like, I've got to be really, really wrong about something fundamental about the market for me to really lose big. Man, Meat Puree, you're funny enough, you're not the first person I've met with the name of Man Meat. I know I'm not saying it right, but I remember there was a guy at the bank by that name. I want to dig deeper. Well, so where I would start, there's what is the name of the book? I forget the name of the guy. Let me pull it up. Yeah, you have been here a lot. This is not the first time you've posted lately, is it? You're right. It's just the first time that I really thought about your name. Oh my gosh, where is it?
Block by.
So this book by Clean Now. Following the Trend, Diversified Managed Futures Trading by Andreas F. Clean Now. And he kind of goes into how a momentum strategy works. And then he has another book where he like straight up gives you Python code for it. So that's kind of like my next project. I have a project that is like getting the AI to work on my Kubernetes cluster and translate or transcribe what I'm saying and then automatically send it off at regular intervals to an AI. So that's like a 1 or 2 day project, I think, that I wanted to get into. And then I was going to try and verify Clean Owl's stuff. But if you guys, you know, I don't know about how the whole thing would work with other people joining me, and, you know, because there's so many open questions about, in my mind still, about like the structure of the company and all of those sorts of things. But the one thing that I am pretty confident in is that if you really want to get involved, like from a regulatory perspective, you want to have a Series 3. So I'd recommend that you go and you get past the Series 3 test. You don't have to be sponsored to take that one. So anybody can do it. And that would, you know, make it easier for you to participate. Because I think the biggest thing would be, you know, raising money is the thing, right? You know, on the strategy help side, you would either need to be, you've found something that you think would add to the strategy, or you have like some professional experience with it, right? But if you have a Series 3, then you can help sell it. essentially. And if you take the test, then you'll be able to invest in it. Because I do want to have this thing where like the investors are able to get a little bit more involved in like helping us out, like giving us tips and things like that. There's been a lot of these companies where they started like like they'll start a data service company and stuff. Like what was it, Quantopian, that they were kind of trying to do that. And I think that their idea was in the end was to create funds from it. I kind of think you do it the other way around. You have a fund, you get everybody involved, and then, they can provide you additional information that can potentially help the strategy. Okay, so like if I went and I got a Series 3, what would be the next step? So then the next step would be you register as a commodities trading advisor. And I think that the way we would have the company set up is like it's a commodities trading advisory company. And then you would go out and find clients and get them to invest in the funds, essentially. Does that make sense? It's because you're really talking about, well, I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. It's something that could become a large company, right? But can start really small and can kind of be bootstrapped to some extent. So if I have all of the certifications necessary to create the company and set it up, right? And I have a strategy, right? I mean, if you already had a managed future strategy that was really good, that it could contribute, then that'd be a different thing, right? But if you don't already have a working strategy, then the next most valuable thing would be the commodities trading advising, which essentially would be finding investors, as I understand it. What is your strategy? I'm basically a speculator. I combine all of the known kind of empirically proven behaviors of the markets, combine them together to understand what's going on in the market, and then I make predictions about what will happen based on informational asymmetries that I possess. Understanding situations where the market is mispricing something, and then speculating that there will be future changes in the order flow that will change that and move it in my direction. That's basically how I trade it. So I am truly a speculator, is my take. But for the managed future strategy, that's basically, it's going to be momentum. It's basically going to be momentum, not speculation. What do you think about the paper, The Inelastic God? Well, I have a video about that. You seen my video about that? I think that the inelastic markets explains a lot of the behavior of the markets and why trading is so hard, and kind of suggests to me that a lot of the things that retail traders, day traders try to do aren't going to work, right? Because most of the strategies that retail day traders try to utilize kind of suggest that there is this informational content inherently available in the price all the time that tells you something about what's going to happen next. And the inelastic theory of markets suggests that that's not true at all. That the price doesn't really mean much of anything, other than that's the current price based on supply and demand and the transactions that have gone into the instrument. Can you suggest a book on quant strategies and quantitative programming? Well, the Clean Now books is kind of where I would start. I think that's like a really, if you're gonna do momentum, quantitative programming is a interesting beast because it in and of itself is a pretty big field, right? If you're going to do a momentum strategy, That's one thing, because some of the stuff that helps you with momentum strategies is like multi-factor analysis, or it's like you have a big matrix of hundreds of different instruments, and then you compare their correlations with each other to be able to find an optimal universe for your portfolio. And how do you do that? There's this whole field of quant for that sort of stuff, right? Is different from if you're going to do statistical arbitrage, for instance. So yeah, the top strategies I've seen funds use are basically momentum, trend following, and mean reversion. Yeah. Well, particularly in the CTA space. Systematic strategies in the CTA space basically mean momentum. Yeah. And those are going to be very different from the strategies that you're going to use if you're pricing options, which is another completely different world. So there might be certain gateways into the quantitative world, but you're going to want to niche down, and you're going to need to really understand the thing. Yeah, I saw that you had passed the Series 3. Can you talk about, what would you like to know about it? I would say that it was not a difficult test for me. Most of the stuff, well, pretty much all of the stuff that was on the test were things that I already knew, and you just kind of have to practice taking their test, because they have some awfully tricky questions. They do a really good job at tricking you and asking, like I think most of you could stumble through. Okay. Oh, hold on. My voice is kind of cracking here. It's early in the morning and my throat hasn't cleared itself yet. Why am I $600 poorer than I would be if I didn't use a stop loss? That, man, you might be trading too big. The book about trend following is Following the Trend by Andreas F. Klenow. Andreas F. Klenow is the name that I would search up, because he's got a couple of books. They're good. Yeah, if you $600, that kind of, like if you got slippage and stuff from like your stop. Yeah, if you lost $600 from a stop being triggered when it probably shouldn't have been, or something like that, you're probably trading too big of a size anyways. Yeah, my stop was break even, but like okay, so you had $600 in profit and then you lost it? I don't know. I mean, the market moves around a lot. There's a lot of noise, and especially in this treasury market, right? We have been seeing both ends of this range like every day. That's why I kind of wait for situations where I think that I have a really strong flow that is really going to move us and has a high probability of taking us where I think we're going to go. Okay, so Series 3, though, I think most of you guys could answer questions like, okay, if the tick size of this instrument is this, and you lost X ticks, how much money did you make or lose, right? But they will ask you more clever questions like, okay, you are long the commodity and you are short the futures, and then, okay, there's a bunch of different questions that I could ask you. I could ask you, okay, what was your net profit when you combine what you made on the commodity and what you made or lost on the future? What was your total overall profit and loss, right? But then another way of asking it is, what price did you ultimately get because of your hedging in the futures? Like if you were to go back and look at your price per bushel or whatever that you sold, what was your net price because of the profit that you made on the futures or whatever the deal is, right? And there's like a bunch of, and that's what you have to study for in the Series 3 exam, right? And just kind of knowing the definitions of everything really exact and so forth. So But overall, I think that a lot of you guys that have been trading futures for years, you understand most of these concepts. And so taking the Series 3 exam, I think, is a natural next step for you. It's just like, after you take the Series 3, then what do you do with it? I'm not 100% sure. ZNB popping? Yeah, no, that last little bit, they certainly went. I have not heard anything from my news squawk, but could be that this trade relating to the Operation Twist is coming in again. I mean, the yield curve is relatively unchanged at the moment, but something that would confirm it for me is if the 5-year and the 2-year started to really outperform. Yeah, well, their strong buying came in for sure at an odd time. That kind of, in a way that suggests to me, you know, like breaking news. I don't know. You also want to start an option-oriented fund? Okay, I'm trading option stocks and index based on VWAP. I read some stuff saying that VWAP is used by institutions to enter their meta orders. Do you agree? Yes and no. I guess the whole thing is that there are some situations where it is still appropriate to use like VWAP and so forth, but the institutions basically learned that just trying to reduce their impact on the liquidity gives them better prices than trying to follow the VWAP form of things. So over the last 20 years, the use of VWAP as an execution strategy for large meta orders has declined significantly. It's really not the edge that I think people believe it is. Yeah, you can send me your coded strategy. I take a look at what you're doing. 'Cause it sounds like you have something. Okay. I'd be interested to see, you know, probably what would be even more useful is just to show me like pictures and stuff, right? Yeah, most of the time hedge funds that deal in options are either market makers or selling variance risk premium shortfall. Yeah, oh, you just send it to speculatorseth@protonmail.com. You can go onto my website and there's like contact information and stuff. There's contact information out there for me somewhere because I get emails every day from people. And I kind of forget where I put it out, where they're finding it from, but they're finding it there somewhere. That reminds me, there was this website somebody wanted me to take a look at. See, for what we want to do, I don't think that options would be the way to do it. Because like Obsidian is saying there, you're either a market maker, so you have to be super, super fast, or you're going short volatility, which has some dangers involved in it, right? Oh, Proton Mill updated their interface. So I don't know what the deal is, but all of a sudden this month I've been getting a lot more emails from people wanting to like do stuff. And you know, you have to meet like really specific requirements for me to really want to do a thing. Like if you're an active name in the futures trading space specifically, like you're a futures introducing broker, then I'm all ears, right? But most of these people, they're bringing in stuff from other markets, and they want to show me services that I haven't used before, and you're asking me to make some sort of a long-term commitment on an unproven technology. What's your background? Well, the way that I got started in this was I got really interested in the markets in 2008, but I was basically set to graduate by that point in computer science. So I couldn't, go back and, become a trader or whatever. That path was already gone. So I got a technology job at a bank, worked with the bank for a long time. And then after I left the bank, then I started futures trading. And I learned enough at the bank to kind of know what to look for. And then between that and help from the guys here on the stream and chat and so forth, we were able to find empirical studies and so forth and really understand that stuff well to come to the understanding of the markets that we have today. Mean reversion on the VIX has been a profitable, well, of course, because the VIX keeps going down. I am starting to become a little bit concerned about if we will have another volatility explosion like we did in 2018. Like the way that the markets are going right now, that's going to happen eventually, right? That was when that happened. That was scary. That was scarier to me than the way the markets behaved during COVID. When the markets were going crazy during COVID, I kind of thought they were all overreacting. But when the quant quake happened, or whatever you want to call it, part of it was like, this is crazy. They're moving way more extreme than what they should be. But seeing all of the liquidity disappear was just absolutely terrifying to me. The market was truly sick. The market has likely been selling too many put options and are going to wake up to some massive tail risk at some point this year. Well, I think that it's really weird to me that oh man, I don't know if I want to do this. Somebody asked me to look into a certain service, but that's one of those services where they're like, it's free, but you have to sign up with your credit card first. I'm kind of like, maybe later. Anyways, the market has been buying up like crazy, and the institutions have not necessarily been following it. And then they'll all chase it all at once, which just ends up with really silly, zany stuff happening again, right? It's really like, because I've been involved in the market since 2008. And I really feel like we have not been in a normal market since like 2018. Insider sales have also been active lately. Yes. Although, you know what? I am not convinced that the insider sells is the scary predictor that everybody thinks it is. Like, for instance, Jamie Dimon has been selling some of his stock. Well, of course, he's like 70 or something, right? Like, how old? Let's see here. Jamie Dimon, age 67. He's 67. He's retirement age. It's time for him to start slowly selling it off and shifting his portfolio into something that takes care of him in his old age. And he'll be retiring in a few years. Right? And the market is up really big. So, like, when the market is up really strong, that gives you a good opportunity for you to sell. I don't think that necessarily means that they think that, like, a recession is coming or anything like that, right? I love trading, but I understand that it is really important to the computer side. Do you suggest any computer university? Oh, well, so if you're going into computer science, there's lots of universities that you can go to, right? You're from Italy, so this is a different issue, right? Because I don't know anything about the EU schools. I know that for the stuff that I'm interested in, that most of that research happens in France. So it happens in Paris. So if you were gonna, because isn't it like you take the test and then based on the test score that you get determines which school in the EU you can go to and all that kind of stuff, like, and it's paid for. So I don't know how that works. It's different in the United States. In the United States, you're probably better off going to the university for the state that you live in. Most computer science programs are just fine in that respect. I went to the University of Utah, and our specialty is computer graphics. Could I have gone to if I had known my path earlier, I probably could have gone into more of a quantitative finance role and gone to like the University of Chicago or something like that. And, targeted working at Jane Street straight out of school or something like that, right? It would be a very different path. I think, though, honestly, the path that I've taken in life was probably the best for me. I do site reliability engineering, which is kind of like when there's a problem, I'll solve it. And it's not something that was ever on my radar. It was not something that was like, oh, I should do this, or I want to aspire to be in this particular role. It was just kind of happened, and it suits me really, really well, I think. So it's funny that it's like such a perfect role for me that I feel like I kind of almost just found it by accident. It was like it was inevitable that no matter what I did, that I would end up in this particular role simply because it's in high demand and I'm good at it, That as long as I was in computers, that I would eventually get corralled into that kind of a role. It's kind of weird. I don't think that I necessarily have, and this is the issue with starting a fund, right? I don't know if I'm like the congenial people-oriented person that I need to be, right? That's why I need other people. I need other people that, you've gotten the Series 3, you are good with people, and you are good at raising funds, and I can do all of the computer stuff for it. Right? There's lots of different roles, and I'm going to have to play all of them, and at some point, we want to get other people involved so that I don't have to play them all, right? But if you're 18 and you love trading, then and you love math and computers, then I would look at trying to take the quant path. Yeah. I would tell, like when you talk to counselors at schools and things like that, I would tell them, I want to work for Jane Street. That's who I would probably target. Like if you target Jane Street and you don't make it to Jane Street, there's plenty of other places that you can go, right? But that would be the kind of job that I would target. I don't know. I would probably do pretty good at a company like that too. Like, having somebody that's a really good programmer and really understands the systems, because that's kind of part of the problem over there in the quant world, is like having everything set up so that you get the data where it's needed and you can do the kind of analysis that they need to do on it and how you execute it. It's not just code, right? It's a whole pipeline. And I understand that sort of stuff really good. And so when I program, I can make decisions that help make those things easier and make a more sustainable system. And having somebody that has both that ability and understands the math and the market's behavior and so forth behind the strategies at the same time, I think would make me a really valuable programmer for a company like that. But they would probably want me to live in New York and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Start my own fund instead. The other thing is that you might have to move to Utah if we're going to start a fund, because I don't want to move to New York or Chicago. So come all and live with me in the mountain. Get your Series 3, move to Utah in the mountains, and help me run my managed futures fund. I'm thinking about what do I think about this decline from the 27 area. 27 was showing some pretty clear signs of like liquidity hole. So for it to turn back down so quickly is a little bit unusual to me. I'm not too sure. We did see some movement to the upside that did look like a large meta order, but now you see it come back down. It's difficult for me to say, is this a countering large meta order selling now? Or is it just market making? Well, it's about 10,000 contracts both up and down, which seems like that's a little bit less than usual. But there was like strong overall volume in there. So probably some correlations are moving us a little bit more. Also, on this decline here, I'm seeing the yield curve flatten back out. So if there is a meta order, I'm a little bit fuzzy on what's the driver, because, I do have some things like seems to suggest that this Operation Twist trade is kind of unwinding today. So, but I'm not sure. For your fund, what areas of futures will you be focused on? Well, so I may focus it on fixed income, yeah. Because my understanding is that there's a strong degree of momentum in the yield curve itself. So something that I might do is I might just start here with these micro treasury yield futures and just start trading a swing strategy based on momentum in the yield curve, right? Probably not systematically appropriate, like systematic strategy I probably wouldn't be triggering right now, but maybe this Operation Twist thing gives us a good swing on a steepener, for instance, right? And if I do that, then I can just, with my live account, just start trading it here in the micros and build it up, And after I've done that for a few years, then switch it over to a larger fund, But my thinking was to just do a standard momentum strategy. Because, if you're to create a momentum strategy today, right, there's competition. So why would somebody invest in my fund as opposed to somebody else's fund? Well, because they can't afford the other funds. My fund will have the minimum investment amount within the price range of this new class of investors so that, a larger, more diverse group of traders can get into it, right? So it doesn't have to be like the greatest momentum strategy ever, but it does have to be a solid momentum strategy. And there are a couple of things that I know about, having spent so much time backtesting and all of these different kinds of things, that there's a couple of these indicators that compensate for various effects like aliasing and time frame switching and stuff like that it seems to do better on the intraday backtesting and show some promise on a daily basis backtest as well. So I think combining that with some of the stuff that I've read about, what is it, multi-factor analysis of like correlations in a correlation matrix, right? I think that we can create a relatively simple but still pretty effective momentum strategy, right? So that's kind of the direction I'm going. Let's see, I just finished a practice series 3 for fun to see where I'm at right now. I got half of it right. My problem is not knowing options well enough, especially with some of the... Yes. You have to be able to know, like, what is a straddle and a strangle and a condor and a butterfly and the differences and which one is a debit and which one is a credit and how to create a synthetic this and a synthetic that. So it's kind of all things that, like, I think a lot of you guys generally know, but, like, can you from memory spit them out, right? Because, I often find myself drawing pictures. I'm like, okay, so if this is a call and then this is a short put, and then you combine them together and you get this, and then that's a synthetic long. Oh, okay, right. I have to do that sort of stuff in my head. As opposed to just having it memorized, which is probably what you need to do for the test. Pull up NYCB. Okay. That's the bank that everybody's concerned about, right? Ooh, DWAC is up again big today. That's some crazy volume over in DWAC. But they haven't broken a new high yet. New York Community Bank. Oh. You're right. I didn't realize that they got hammered on the first, and they're looking ugly today. Oh my gosh. That's terrible. No, I did not see Trump on the ballot. They already released the ruling on it. I told you did I not say that I think that it will be a 7-1 or an 8-1 if not 9-0 decision? Let's see here. Where should I go? Let's go to SCOTUS blog. Announcement of opinions for Monday, March 4th. Trump v. Anderson. The court reversed the Colorado Supreme Court's decision to remove former President Donald Trump from the state's primary ballot on the grounds that he participated in an insurrection. Because the Constitution makes Congress rather than the states responsible for enforcing Section 3 against federal office holders and candidates, we reverse. Okay. So this is an opinion that we'll have to dissect a lot more, though, right? Because there's kind of these questions about, like, did he actually participate in insurrection? And has he been, So now the thing would be, oh, Congress should vote on that he did an insurrection and that he should be barred from the ballot or something like that, right? You wouldn't be able to pass that in Congress right now, but they could try it. But then would that be legal either? Because if you say that he didn't actually participate and, he didn't get a fair trial or, So I kind of want to know which of those questions got answered in it, right? Let's see here. Okay, SCOTUS blog doesn't have any more information on it. Gonna try like my political blogs now. Let's see here. Perhaps r/law 19 minutes ago. How come I don't know? Maybe my news squawk is not working correctly. Because I don't think I've heard anything from them, and that's something that I would have thought I would be seeing. Oh, see, now it's like it's all coming out. Now I'm seeing it on Twitter. Okay, here's the political story about it. That will probably be a good one. Let's read the political story. States have no authority to remove Donald Trump from the 2024 presidential ballot. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously on Monday, short-circuiting efforts by his detractors to declare him disqualified over his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The justices did not weigh in on the fraught question of whether Trump engaged in an insurrection by attempting to subvert the 2020 election results or stoking violence on January 6th. But the High Court ruled in an unsigned opinion that only Congress, not the states, can disqualify a presidential candidate under the Constitution's insurrection clause. The justice's decision overturns the Colorado ruling that would have removed Trump from the ballot there. The decision spells doom for a slew of other state-level challenges to Trump's qualification under an interpretation of the 14th Amendment clause. It says that those who engaged in an insurrection after taking an oath to support the Constitution are ineligible to hold office again. So, clearly still a developing story. Okay, so what we really need to do is we need to go to r/politics and lap up all of the tiers. Oh, they already have a mega thread. Okay, let's see here. What's the top comment? This is the due process off-ramp. People were expecting Section 5 and booting it to Congress. This essentially ends every 14th effort in the nation, not just Colorado. Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson agreed that leaving it up to the states was not practical. To be honest, I agree. It simply isn't feasible to have 35-plus litigious efforts going on, presumably while people are headed to the polls in months after candidates are placed on ballots. What should have happened was a deeper dive into the merits. The lower court's finding of facts that Trump had engaged in insurrection, and for the court to disqualify Trump nationally based on his acts. Yeah, of course, there's no way that's going to happen. I don't think that would be under the... Well, okay, number one, I don't think that would be under the, within the Supreme Court's powers. But number two, I don't think that the law really comes down on their side that he engaged in insurrection. So if that was what they were going to do, I think that they would lose on that one too, although maybe it would be more of a split decision. Yeah, technically Congress acquitted him in the Senate or we wouldn't be here today. Yes. If they had convicted him of insurrection in that second impeachment trial, then it would be a different issue. Is there order flow for stocks like futures? Only tape and level 2 there is. And I made a video about that. It's called I can't remember. But if you just go back through my videos, it's not that far back. And it has like you'll know it because the thing is like order flow for stocks, and I'm like all shocked. But I got a demo of it when it was coming out. I was really impressed with what I saw. It allowed me to see some particularly crazy moves in stocks, and when I was seeing that, looking at the order flow kind of told me some things that I think retail traders would have made different decisions had they seen what was going on, because it was like this stock that was like popping off like big time. And meanwhile, all of the order flow was sell. The market orders was sell the whole way. And so, yeah, the next day it completely collapsed. And a lot of people lost money on that one. So if you want to day trade stocks, I think that looking at the order flow in stocks is something worth investigating for sure. Man, I'm looking for the tiers, but so far I'm just seeing people trying to verify their questions. Yeah, this is interesting. The court has said a lot between the lines. 1, Congress is responsible for enforcing the 14th Amendment. 2, Section 3 is still valid outside of Civil War contexts. Yes. Oh, this guy disagrees. Section 3 is still valid outside of Civil War context for state elections, but at the federal level, the Amnesty Act of 1872 likely needs to be repealed first, but the Supreme Court didn't go that far. You know what I'm seeing right now is I'm not seeing tiers. I'm seeing a bunch of Redditors trying to say, like, see, we all knew that this wasn't going to go this way anyways. Even though r/politics has been posting nothing but why Donald Trump should be disqualified from the ballot for, like, the past freaking 3 months. Good grief. There we go. Insane. Utterly insane. I'm going to downvote you to 0. Cool. And then everybody trying to comfort him. No, I see, it would have been crazy if they had made a different decision. Here's somebody. So the Supreme Court has enumerated a power for the federal government, taking it away from the states the power to run federal elections. If enforcing the 14th Amendment is Congress's problem, then the 14th Amendment is effectively dead, and you're never going to get enough of Congress to rule against themselves. The, quote, American experiment has failed. Oh, good grief. On one hand, part of me thinks The Simpsons may have been a psyop. On the other hand, I always think back to the Kent Brockman line. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Democracy simply does not work. I think that The Simpsons is a self-fulfilling prophecy is what it is. So I think that we are acting it out because we've watched The Simpsons. There we go. This was fun, though, like thinking about winning the lottery. Fun but useless. Treasuries have been on quite a trip today, haven't they? Do you think that we'll make a meaningful move after I'm gone? Because when we're in a situation like that, that's usually what happens, is like it does end up breaking out and like really moving one way, but like only after I'm done trading. Funny how quickly they can move on this one, but need 4 to 5 months on the immunity case. That was like 3 months, 3 or 4 months, though, wasn't it? Yeah. Today I learned insurrections can run for president in this. No, he's not an insurrectionist. That's ridiculous. There are a lot of comments on this already. Let's see here. The text of the 14th Amendment on its face does not affirmatively delegate such a power to the states. The terms of the amendment speak only to enforcement by Congress, which enjoys power to enforce the amended through legislation pursuant to Section 5. Yep. Does not. It's actually, the thing that's surprising is that their decision was as straightforward as it is, because I think that everybody was kind of speculating that there's all these surrounding questions, and it doesn't look like they actually answered those. They just said, like, look, there's what it says in the Constitution. It's pretty straightforward that Congress is supposed to enforce that. Yeah. So much for states' rights. But the Constitution specifically gives it to Congress, so... Cool, let's speed run the rest of the game. Trump is on the ballot, refuses to debate Biden, wins by a fraction, rips up the lawsuits against him, and fast tracks the nation to certain doom. Okay, that's interesting that he thinks that Trump is going to be the one that refuses to debate Biden and not vice versa. That's funny. But there are signs that neither of them want to do the debate. Like, there are signs that we just won't get a debate this time around, so... He doesn't think that the debate moderator will be fair. I think that they make a deal with him and they pick the right moderator, he'll be okay with it. Like if they came in and they said, okay, well, Joe Rogan will moderate the debate, right? Then he would do it, right? That would be so funny. I can totally see like Joe Rogan or Lex Fridman moderating a presidential debate. I could see it. It seems like so stupid and silly to me, but like the way things have been going in society, it kind of seems like actually a fairly likely thing. Just here to watch the meltdown so far. I'm not just. I had to scroll down pretty far, but I am starting to see this stuff. Yeah, it's ridiculous how this decision was 9-0 when people here are still saying that, oh, well, I guess everyone is compromised, can't trust anyone at all, instead of the more reasonable reaction of, well, maybe since it was 9-0, including justices that are ideologically opposed to Trump, maybe they got this right. I think that probably the case is that the 14th Amendment was maybe not written as well as it could be, but that they never intended it to be used in the way that it's being used against Trump, and that the Supreme Court is making the only reasonable decision that they could. See, I like this kind of a thing because to me, this is the way that the world is supposed to work. Any system that you make, any law that you make, it comes from humans. Humans are inherently flawed. Your systems and your laws will be inherently flawed. And the only remedy for that is for you to sometimes come in and just make the right decisions. For us to say, well, the system wants us to do this, but we're going to do this because we know that this is the right thing. And that's what I think is happening right here. So they're saying, well, there is some vagueness in it and so forth, but obviously what the system that they want to impose, where, you know, anybody can just be challenged by any state and taken off the ballot, is a little silly. Okay, now let's go to r/law. So this person says they're opening the door to Congress being the mechanism of enforcement. By what means? Not certifying any electoral votes? This is asinine. Basically, as far as I can tell, the VP-elect would become president. Rather interesting issue considering that the House is likely to be Democrat majority at that time. So they're saying, oh, when it comes time to certify the vote, Congress can then step in and say, oh, actually, you are not, you're not valid to be on the ballot or whatever. And so now the vice president is president. That would be, if that's what actually happened, that would be like such a shit show. Oh my gosh, it just warps my mind thinking about it. And the fact that that's like the first comment on r/law kind of scares me, because they're right that the House is likely to be Democrat majority at that time. I don't know what the probabilities are, but it may be that it's a Democrat House. BTC options are fun to trade, but it's a rather slow-moving ones. I want to find a quant. I don't know about that one, because do you remember the whole thing with FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried? And part of the reason that they ran into the issue that they did with Alameda was that the Alameda was doing like high-frequency quant strategies, and then their edge diminished. Essentially, somebody else came along and was putting more money into it and was faster than them. And so Alameda was basically taking on risk and doing stupid things to compensate, to try and make money, right? So that suggests to me that there actually is a lot of competition in that space now. And especially now that you got the ETFs. I don't know if HFT, you know, like one might think, trying to beat Citadel at options in stocks doesn't really make sense, so let's do it in Bitcoin. Well, I think that's probably the same situation, right? Except for that you're doing Bitcoin, so you're taking on the additional risks of holding Bitcoin at the same time. Dude, the r/law comments are more unhinged than the r/politics. And there's all these people talking about the downfall of our country. Yeah, it could be sad face. Yeah. I mean, I cannot recommend playing in the Bitcoin space on an intraday time frame, right? There's just too much risks involved. You can get this downsides move that completely destroys your account in an instant. It's just too crazy over there. Course, I still think that where are we at now? 67, and I'm sure that they just continue to go up with the momentum that's involved in here. I don't see what would stop them from hitting 100,000 this year, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna buy it, but that's sure seems to me like that's where they're headed. I want nothing to do with it. I can predict where it's going to go. That doesn't mean that I like it. And I feel that even just trying to trade it and make money off of it kind of participates and perpetuates the scheme. So I just want nothing to do with it. There's this guy. Wow, I guess call me a blind faith daydreamer. I had almost thought that they would uphold Colorado's ruling, but it was unanimous vote shot down. Can you imagine the number of people on the left that they only get their information from left-wing sources and from Reddit, and this whole time they've been thinking that the Supreme Court is going to disqualify Trump from running for president? And having that entire world view just absolutely shattered in an instant like that. Those are the most interesting social phenomenons, I think, is when a large group of people's belief system is just shattered like that. And this one is for that group of far left people, it is going to be pretty extreme for them. Because now they kind of have to guess, what else are they telling me that's not accurate about this situation? Or is the country really this is just the end? Could be. The American government is functionally dead now. I guess I was holding on to a shred of hope and sanity. It's gone now. Maybe, hopefully, Dementia Dawn is... Well, I would say that the American government has been dysfunctional since basically 2006. So let's go to now. Conservative blogs should be picking it up. I can remember there was a number of conversations too where somebody was certain that they were going to disqualify Trump, and I was like, you want to bet money on it? There was at least 2 situations where I honestly tried to get somebody to bet money on it, because to me it was like, this isn't easy. This is just taking money. but they didn't go for the bet. So now I'm thinking, should I go back and find those? Nah, it's too much work. Too much work to go back and find those in Glow. Plus, that'd be kind of an asshole thing to do anyway, so I won't do that. Oh, okay, so here's the interesting. The liberal wing of the court issued its own concurrence on the broad question of states' rights and authority, but they complain that the court went too far in its isolation of relief to Congress alone. A federal conviction on a charge of insurrection, a statute currently in place by Congress's action, should allow Section 3 to be self-executing, they argue. You know what? I think I agree with them on that one, actually. I think that if there was a conviction on the charge of insurrection, that Section 3 should be self-executing. And then at that point, Congress would vote on exercising it or something. But I think that, you know, if Congress had a vote on it, that they would have to say, yes, it was, right? Okay, Section 3 marked the first time the Constitution placed substantial limits on states' authority to choose its own officials. Given that context, it would defy logic for Section 3 to give states new powers to determine who may hold the presidency. It would be incongruous to read this particular amendment as granting states the power silently, no less, to disqualify a candidate for federal office. That provides a secure and sufficient basis to resolve this case. To allow Colorado to take a presidential candidate off the ballot under Section 3 would imperil the framers' vision of a federal government directly responsible to the people. Term limits, etc. The court should have started and ended its opinion with this conclusion. Ultimately, under the guise of providing a more substantial, complete explanation for judgment, the majority resolves many unsettled questions about Section 3. It forecloses judicial enforcement of that provision, such as might occur when a party is prosecuted by an insurrectionist and raises a defense on that score. The majority further holds that any legislation to enforce this provision may prescribe certain procedures tailored to Section 3 ante at 10, ruling out enforcement under general federal statutes requiring the government to comply with the laws. By resolving these and other questions, the majority attempts to insulate all alleged insurrectionists from future challenges to their holding federal office. Perhaps. But I would maintain, I think that they're correct. If Trump was convicted under the Insurrection Act, then he should be disbarred from running for office. But if he was charged, he would win, because his actions do not qualify as insurrection under that act. So I'm okay with going along with the leftist view of that, but you know, I don't know if that is an attempt to insulate all alleged insurrections from future challenges, because I still think under the current ruling, if somebody was prosecuted as an insurrectionist and survived appeal and all of that sort of thing, then I think it would still become an issue again. Maybe they would push it to the Supreme Court and revisit it, or maybe Congress would just act on it then at that point. I don't know. That is a valid and reasonable point one I've been making all along. Congress has already acted on Section 5 by making insurrection a federal crime. It rarely, if ever, gets charged and tried, but it does exist and serves Section 3 in practical terms. If someone commits an insurrection and gets convicted of that federal crime defined by Congress, then Section 3 should be self-executing in regard to that specific person. However, no one has even charged Trump with that crime, let alone convicted him of it, and it's not as if prosecutors are shy about charging Trump. Justice Amy Coney Barrett issued a separate concurrence that offers some soft support for this argument, although only in 2 paragraphs. She emphasizes, however, that the real story here is their unanimity in regard to state action on Section 3. particularly in the circumstances writing on the court should turn the national temperature down, not up. For present purposes, our differences are far less important than our unanimity. All 9 justices agree on the outcome of this case. That is the message Americans should take home. I gotcha. So that does kind of make me wonder if the conservatives kind of pushed it in, like they wanted the thing to say that only Congress could enforce it in order to make it a non-issue in the election. Because if the concurrence had said you can remove them from the ballot if they're convicted of insurrection, then of course the next thing that the left would do would try and get a rush in to try and convict Trump of insurrection, right? So if you just say, no, Congress has to do something, Congress is controlled by Republicans, and that closes it as an issue for this election. But that does not preclude this other theory that now I've already seen pop up, which is that Democrats will refuse to certify the election if and when Donald Trump wins. That would be the ultimate irony, wouldn't it? Yeah, if you did that, then I think you probably would start having insurrection. Maybe not run by Donald Trump, but I think that his supporters would start to insurrectionate. Did I just make up a word there? Democrats will ultimately do the things they accuse Republicans of. It is. It really is. Well, and in most, I tell you, man, most of the time what's actually going on is Republicans are just learning from what the Democrats did previously. All of the things that I see the leftists complain about the most, they learned that from Democrats. They learned that from Democrats. Republicans complain about it and say that's not right and just not do anything. And it wasn't until Donald Trump that they said, look, like, this is the way the game is played right now. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Right? And so then Republicans started pulling the same stuff that Democrats do. They do. This guy, I forget his first name. It's like Rawlings, and he reports on TikTok and YouTube Shorts about like aviation and military type stuff. And one of the things that he was talking about this week was how the U.S. government doesn't really participate in propaganda, disinformation campaigns in the way that other countries do, because they're like so concerned that like people will find their, that when their propaganda comes out that the American people will really hate it and yada, yada, yada. And so they don't run psyops the same way that like Russia does. And one of the things that he was talking about was that like the political parties do it instead. That's the way that it works in the United States, is that the political party pushes that stuff and not like the military and the CIA and stuff. And I was like, yep, that's exactly what happens. This is the Democrat Party. I'm just straight up telling you guys, the Democrat Party has these farms where they've got these people that just sit there and comment on stuff all day. And I bet that if you've been involved in a political discussion, that you've run into them before. There's been many situations where I feel like that's probably what's happening, because like you'll come in and somebody will start arguing with you, and then you make a point that they don't expect. And that just absolutely destroys all of the narrative and stuff that they were using before. And then all of a sudden you get swarmed. Then all of a sudden there's like dozens of people arguing with you. And you're like, where the hell did all of these people come from? It's because it's not organic. And we know this. We know that this happens, okay? Media didn't report it on it very often anymore, but we know that this is still happening. And the Republicans probably do it too, to some extent, although we don't know. I've never seen anything about the extent of their activities. Get prepared for full-scale attack on the court? Probably. That's the other thing. I tell you what, is that people's reactions to political things these days don't seem to follow logic at all. They just do and say whatever it is that they think helps their side. Because a 9-0 should be like, yeah, okay, like, obviously the rule is the way that it is. Like, because the whole Supreme Court agreed, hey, what Colorado was trying to do was not constitutional. But people will still try and say, that means that the Supreme Court is compromised, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, it is a pretty solid review. I really think that it is. I do kind of think that they maybe have a point that the conservative decision, pushing it towards only Congress can enforce this, was a step too far, probably intended to prevent this from being an issue at all within this election. That does seem to be the case to me. Like, conservatives said, well, if we say this, then they will just go and start trying to prosecute him for being in an insurrection. So we're just going to cut that off the head. Well, that's basically all I got time for today. I was kind of hoping that they would breach the lows, but they didn't, did they? Having a swing position on can really change your perspective, because when I look at the chart, I see it as like, there's a pretty strong move up and then pretty strong come right back down. But then when I'm looking at it from the position of my swing trade, it's like nothing really happened today. So, I don't know, man. This is going to get interesting. Market this week, I think. I think we could see some next big steps for the market this week. So we'll see. Anyways, I should get going, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for stopping by. Stay excellent, team.